All right, let's return to our top story. The residents of Riverlea, southwest of Johannesburg, have for years been terrorized by the turf wars of rival illegal mining gangs. And while the recent Bree Street gas explosion was not as a result of illegal mining activity, there are many seismic shakes every day on the Witwatersrand, given the extensive mining that's taken place for over 100 years here. Well, let's look at the legacy of mining and the modern problems of mining. I'm joined by David van Wyk. He's lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. David, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start in Riverlea, because that is our area of focus. We know there are many areas that are plagued by illegal mining, that have the legacy problems of old mining operations, whether it's criminality of zama-zamas or the dust from the mine dumps that gives people terrible respiratory illnesses. Talk to me specifically about Riverlea and what it once was and what it is today.
Well, I think that Riverlea was established in 1965 when coloured and black people were removed from white areas in Johannesburg and put into Soweto, various parts of Soweto, and in Riverlea, of course. And Riverlea was placed between the Mooifontein mine dump, the Diepkloof mine dump, and there was the mine dump at 3L2, a huge big mountain just on the north-western side of Riverlea. And then, of course, Riverlea is a very interesting place because the first mine license was issued there in 1886, and the first incline shafts in Johannesburg went underground at Riverlea, just south of Langlaagte, at George Harrison. George Harrison was the guy who got the first mining license in the Transvaal Republic. And, of course, the George Harrison Park that is now there was established. It was supposed to be a mining monument. There was a very beautiful wall that traced the history of mining in Johannesburg, the number of mine workers and so on that operated in Johannesburg and so on. And that heritage site was very badly neglected by the South African Heritage Resource Association. And eventually in about 2010, that land which was part of Joburg City Parks land, was sold to an Australian mining company called Central Rand Gold. And Central Rand Gold operated there. They opened up a very big hole right behind TC Esterhazy School, which is also a heritage site. It was a school that was established in 1917, and right behind the school, within less than 20 meters, in some cases less than 5 meters of the playground, they dug a huge big open cast hole, which never produced any gold, but which opened up the area and the tunnels underneath Riverlea for people to get into, and that is when you started having the first illegal miners appearing there. Central Rand Gold went bankrupt in February 2018, abandoning its workers as well as abandoning that particular site, and that particular site never got rehabilitated. Now, the Riverlea Forum has been very active in fighting for the environment around Riverlea to be cleaned up and for mining around it to cease. And certainly before 2010, that area was supposed to be a green belt park area, but City Parks then very corruptly sold the land to Central Rand Gold for R1 million, and I'm told by park officials that that money was not even paid. And when we investigate now, the land actually belongs to Steinhoff, of all people. Oh. Now, one wonders how this land got into the hands of Steinhoff and this huge big hole there. Stunning. And, you know, between Central Rand Gold and Steinhoff, someone has to take responsibility for that huge big hole that is there.
And as you say,
in the meantime, many people, very senior people from the ruling party who grew up in Riverlea have died from cancer. And of course, there's a hell of a lot of respiratory problems there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating but also completely tragic tale of how, as we've moved away from mining in certain areas, there's not been proper rehabilitation. There's not been proper thought to how we correctly repair the land, how we look after people still living in those areas. And you've mentioned how criminality was literally, the hole opened up for criminality, and we're sitting with the problems that we have today. Do you believe that part of the solution in terms of the criminality is to give artisanal mining licenses, to legalize it? Or do you think it's just so far into criminality it won't help?
Well, I think that we've made proposals to the Department of Mineral Resources around the regulation and legalizing of artisanal mining. But before that can be done, you need to do an audit of all the abandoned mines. You need to see which mines are safe and which ones are not safe. The ones that are not safe, you need to close properly. And you need to provide the kind of support structures for these guys to be able to operate in a safe and legal manner. Apart from that, you would need to create a central buying agency for gold so that they cannot sell to syndicates, and you can eliminate the syndicates from the business. The thing is that when mines get abandoned, they also abandon their mine workers, and the mine pension funds are not paying out the pensions to these workers. We're currently doing research in the Lesotho area, for example, and we ask people, why do they go to the mines in Johannesburg? And they say, we are going to fetch the pensions of our fathers, the pensions of our uncles, and so on. Now, the people of Riverlea, the so-called colored people of Riverlea, were forced into that area, and they never benefited from mining at all. They never got any jobs from mining. They never got any social and labor plan benefits from mining, even though this Central Rand gold operation promised them 2,000 jobs, which never actually materialized. So you have a host community of this mine who never benefited from mining, and then you've got mine workers that got abandoned. In February 2018, the mine workers arrived for work. The gates were locked. Security guards with police dogs were waiting for them and chased them away. Their pensions, their UIF, nothing was ever paid. And we know who the directors of that mining company were, and they were not prosecuted. They were not taken to task for abandoning that mine. And we are told that, the Minister of Mineral Resources wants to issue new mining licenses in that same area, which really is not profitable for large-scale industrial mining. It might be worthwhile for smaller scale mining, but you really need to consult with the people who are living there, first of all, whether they actually want mining at all, and whether this mining isn't just going to cause more problems than what it is already doing now.
It's such fascinating insights you're giving us, David, and it is clear that it is a multi-layered, multifaceted approach that is required to properly set these former mining areas on the right path. The police operation we're seeing, that is just a very small beginning, and let's hope it's not a one-off and they're heading out in the next week. David van Wyk, thank you very much for chatting to us this evening. Love to talk to you more at some stage. But we'll leave it there for now. Completely fascinating history of Riverlea and how it has been neglected and corrupted and left out of any workable solutions. That was David van Wyk, lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.